Welcome to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest today, Kylie Joe Smith. And wow, we are so excited to have Kylie Joe on today because we're going to see her on August the 30th right here in Abilene, Kansas. And she's going to be at Emmanuel Church for a service at 10 o'clock in the morning. We're excited to have her and her husband here and the two little ones. So I'm assuming they're going to make the trip too.
Yes.
Well, Kylie Joe, tell me about you. Tell me about yourself, your
All
family.
right. Well, if you've got the time, I would love to. I am born and raised in Kansas. I actually was born in Hayes. And so I was born 5 weeks early, which back in that time, I won't say exactly how old I am, but back at that time, it was a lot more risky to be born early. And my mother was very young. She was a single mother. And so all of these things kind of created that perfect recipe for some disaster. It created a lot of potential for things to go wrong. And really just growing up, a Midwestern girl, growing up in a culture that I oftentimes felt at odds with and didn't really understand why. The constant thread I've seen throughout my life is that the Lord has just continued to pour his grace and redirect every single bit of opposition or challenge or frustration I've ever felt. I can always point to the grace that God had in that situation. So where I was fatherless for a lot of my childhood, and then had a stepdad who was grace to me in that season. I also got to learn about my birth father and have a relationship with him now as an adult. That's more grace that I've gotten to have. And really, I just have wanted to share that as much as I can once God got a hold of my heart and transformed me from the inside and has begun showing me about himself and who he's called me to be. There's just a part of me that's always wanted to share the things that he's taught me through whether it's my own, as we say, hard-headedness, or it is the circumstances that I've been in. I just have always wanted to share what God is doing and how he is working in everything and all things for our good.
Hi. Is your mom still living?
Yes, she is. She lives in Wichita, which is where I was mostly raised. And she just incredibly resilient woman, had to put up with a lot of things that most of us would not have been able to endure at a young age and by herself. And so she's become a constant just reminder of God's grace and his goodness and the perseverance that we have to have, even when we don't want to.
She's an encourager for you, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
Well, when did you begin to exhibit that musical talent that you have? Because if I was talking to your mom and I would say, "Mom, when did Kylie Joe begin to show that?" Chances are she'd say, at 2 or 3 when she would be singing on with something, and I just knew she would grow up to be the talent that she is. Would she say that?
Yeah, she probably would say that. I know that my mom did not shortchange me on listening to good music as a kid. I actually, weird thing, I grew up listening to all country music for the most part. So like I grew up on Tim McGraw, Alan Jackson, Randy Trout, and all these great musicians. And so I would sing. My very first concert was actually Alan Jackson, and I think I was probably, oh goodness, I probably was 4 or 5 years old, and it was the Don't Rock the Jukebox tour, which was not as it's not a redeemed tour, I will say that much, but it was good music, and I remember singing that song at that age and dancing to it. And my mom loved Whitney Houston, so I grew up listening to her. Was just listening to good music as a kid, and I would sing in the car. I actually have a memory of driving in the car in Wichita with the windows down, and where it was the song "I'll Always Love You," right? Whitney Houston's big hit from The Bodyguard, and I was just belting it out. I mean, I was just feeling the song, and I look over, and the lady in the car next to us was watching me, and I got embarrassed, like, "Oh my goodness, I shouldn't be singing." And she goes, "No, honey, you sing it out." And my mom just thought it was the cutest thing. I have that memory is so solid in my mind.
Did you have siblings by then?
At that point, I didn't, but not long after, I have a younger brother and a younger sister on my mom's side. And then I also have other siblings and half siblings. We have a pretty blended family, but I grew up with my two younger siblings who neither of them caught that performance bug. they they're a little bit more reserved with that, but they always were part of my stage plays at home. I made sure that they were in the script when we did things, and I included them.
Do you remember any of those stories where the kids say, "Mom, make her stop singing"?
Yes, often. As every road trip we had, it was like, Mom, please don't bring that CD because Kylie's just going to sing to it.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. So you wind up, of course, in Wichita. You grow up there, and you go to WSU, become a shocker.
Yes, I
And
loved, yes.
when you went to WSU, Kylie Joe, what did you think you were going to be? What were you going to major in? What did you know that you wanted to do, or did you figure it out as you were going to college?
Well, I always knew I wanted to be a performer. That was something that, as most parents will do when their kid is trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. When I said I want to do the arts, I want to be a performer. I think my parents had this simultaneous like, great, that's so awesome, and then this thought of like, oh, I really hope that it works out because there's not any guarantee with that industry in particular. And so I knew I wanted to go and use my voice. And so I applied to a bunch of programs for vocal performance, and I thought that that was what I really wanted to do. And then once I had one semester under my belt, I actually lived in Chicago for a semester of school. I came back when my dad was deployed for Operation Iraqi Freedom, and I knew that I needed to be at home with my family, but I just still wanted to pursue the thing that I felt God was putting on my heart. So I applied at Wichita State and auditioned for the first show. I knew that I had to do that as a scholarship student, but I didn't realize how much just drive that I had to still be a part of it. So I knew from the first audition that I had there that like, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is for sure the thing. And this is the place where I know that I can be molded in the best way.
Well, that's awesome. Now tell me about Nick. Did you guys meet at WSU or later?
Well, kind of. So I did a show with Cabaret Old Town when it was still a theater in Wichita. And it was like my last theater show as a high school student. It was like my graduating show. It was Little Shop of Horrors. And Nick was actually the resident sound designer for Cabaret Old Town. So we did the show in that space with music theater for young people. And so he was the sound designer. And back then, okay, so my husband is very clean cut. He's a pastor. He's very professional. Back then, he had long hair, like long. And
Did
I
you save any
remember
of those
thinking,
pictures? Did you save
oh,
any
I
of them?
have, oh
Okay.
yeah, I have some. I can
Kids
share
will
them.
see that, won't they?
Yes. And I remember thinking like, oh, that guy's really cute. You know, he seems nice. But in my mind, as an 18-year-old, he was probably far too old for me. And I'd given him, as I gave everyone, my senior picture that year. It was, it's what you hand out to everybody. And then when I ended up coming back to Wichita to go to Wichita State that next year, Nick was in the theater department. And he came up to me and he goes, I know this is going to sound weird, but I have your picture in my wallet. And I thought that it would be weird if I hadn't given it to him, but that is weird that he kept it. And then the conversation grew from there. And then we just developed a friendship. And really, the Lord got a hold of both of our hearts in that season to grow us and kind of bring us out of some of that immaturity that we had as college students. And so yes, we did re-meet at Wichita State, but we had met before that. God really planted some seeds there.
Yeah, it's an awesome story. That's awesome. And I know that you and Nick are both you are involved with a church in Plainville, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And how long has he been the or are both of you pastors? You a worship pastor and he's the pastor?
Yeah.
You
Lead
give the
pastor.
messages too? Both of you do? How do you, what do you, I'll quit talking and listen to you. Tell me what you do.
You're good. So he's the lead pastor, and one of the things I love about the District of Nazarene churches that we're a part of is that when we interviewed here, we interviewed as a couple. We interview as a family. So even though Nick's resume was the one that got sent, and he's the one technically that's hired, they wanted to look at us as a couple. They wanted to include and involve the family, and so we really, that's how we orient ourselves in life. We do life as a family, and our ministry is that way. So where I might find my ministry is more focused towards music and occasional teaching, Nick is like, He is in there with the word every week. He is shepherding and leading and, making phone calls and visiting people as much as possible and helping in that way. And so we worked together in that for the past now almost 4 years. We're in our fourth year here. And it's just been an incredibly growing season, more than I expected in a small town, which I'm not used to a small town.
Yeah, I understand, but this is very difficult times for everybody, and certainly for the church, the congregation, the church at large. Very difficult. I suspect, Kylie Joe, that with you being the leader that you are in the music, you have identified that kid that's in the church that's the Kylie Joe, the one that's got that ability, and you're an encourager. And that one who sings just a little bit louder, and then somebody looks at them and they tone back down, because just like what you told me you went through, well, I've embarrassed myself because I don't feel like I'm that good. I bet you bring the best out in all of those that are involved in your program. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. I certainly hope to. That's the goal.
So you mentioned at the beginning of this that you saw many of the name performers. Have you worked with name performers so far?
Well, I've worked with a lot of the local celebrities, I suppose, in Wichita. I've gotten to work with Carla Burns, who I believe is one of the most dynamic and amazing people. Different names in theater. I got to work with Wayne Bryan with Music Theater Wichita. And I really love that I've gotten to work through the Academy of Dreamers. I've gotten to work in some incredible studios in Nashville with studio musicians and touring musicians. Like on one of my singles, I actually had the same drummer that Kelly Clarkson has when she goes out on tour. And I have an Emmy award-winning composer, Lendl Black, actually is playing on the very beginning of my newest single. And Lendl and Lester Estelle, who's the drummer, like just incredible people who this is their life, this is what they do, and then they're actually on the music that I get to do, and being in the studio and watching them work has just been, it's like not intimidating, but it's like, oh my gosh, like these are real professional people that are doing this. And it's so amazing.
I hear people that are professionals such as you, that they go back and they'll say, well, I don't know, it was just kind of natural by the time I got on the stage, because I kind of felt like that I belonged there with them. And I said, well, when did you sit down and think about, I just finished performing with this person, that person, in front of an audience of a large crowd? And I said, when did you start to pinch yourself? And they said, usually a couple hours after I got home. I would sit there and I would say, wow, Lord, thank you for what you've done. And I never thought I had the ability to do it, but Lord, you've opened the door for me. You get that feeling?
Often. Honestly, the Ward brothers out of Oklahoma, they have, they've co-written songs with me, and I've been able to sit in studio with them and kind of sit at their feet and watch them work in some of this. And every single time that's gotten to happen, even though it's not on a stage and most of it happens kind of behind the scenes, I get that. When I leave, I'm like, oh my goodness, Lord, I just got to write a song with the Ward brothers. Lord, I just got to sit and watch like these amazing musicians put something together. And honestly, I had worked at Sight and Sound Theaters a number of years ago, and it's like thousands of people sit in that audience every day. And I remember the first time stepping out and seeing all of the people. And that was the first time in the moment I was like, oh my goodness, like people really do want to see what we're creating. They really do want to be inspired in this way. And I remember that whole show, I think I forgot most of my blocking and what I was supposed to do, because it was just a long process of just soaking in all of that.
I can imagine that would be the feeling that, the pre-show excitement that goes with it, and then all of a sudden you're out there and you're doing your job, and then when you get done, I just finished singing with these people here and to these people here, or an audience that I don't even know who it will be, but that's how that starts, and before you know it, you're the main event at the concerts. and that would not surprise me at all for you, especially when you have your husband Nick that has the ability to, as I look at the set behind you, you got the on-air, the home studio set up, and I haven't heard the kids come in, so I think you were right when you said, yeah, my studio is pretty much soundproof. And I said, well, we'll see when the kids figure out where you guys are. But I haven't heard the kids in the background, so that's awesome. What's your plans from here?
Well, on August 30th, I have my single coming out, Save Me. And so right now I'm working on just promoting that because I'm an independent artist. So I rely heavily on the people around me to help me to push that out. And I just want that to reach as many people as possible, because the message that it's about needing to be saved, and not just the one-time event that we often think about, the altar call kind of pomp and circumstance, but it's the continual being saved through situations. And so I want to share that first with people. And then my husband and I have some projects we're working on independently that we hope will amount to an EP that we'll be able to release and continue touring as soon as it's safe. So that's one thing that I've had to learn to be very patient in this season, because we had a whole plan of when we thought everything should happen. And now it's very clear that touring is on hold for right now, but that is a goal, to be able to tour and continue touching people with the message that we have.
Yeah, I understand that concept of, well, I have a plan, but then the Lord says, here's the plan. This is what we'll do. And okay, that's not what I had in mind, but He knows the better plan. There was a song that you did, was your first song, I Will Stand?
Yes, yeah.
When did you do that one?
We recorded that. Now that would have been, 2014 maybe? Yeah, I think that was about then. And that was through the Academy of Dreamers. So basically we had gone to a worship night at our church where this band called Consumed by Fire, they're now known as the Ward Brothers, they presented this thing that said, hey, if you know anybody who sings, have them audition for us. We want to send them to Nashville. And my husband was like, you got to do it. And I'm thinking, like, this sounds kind of weird. I don't know if I really trust it. And I did it anyway. I went ahead and auditioned. And then they said, we want to bring you out. Actually, I still have the email that they had sent me saying, like, yes, we want you. Let's do this. And several months later, after getting everything squared away, went to Nashville, wrote the song with them, and recorded at the House of Blues. And the Academy of Dreamers was still really young back then. It was like in its baby phases. Right now it's grown quite a bit more. And so there was a lot of things that I didn't know then. I had no idea how to promote music or how to release a single that really made for that experience. For me, it was like, okay, I wrote this song and I got to share it, but I don't really know what else to do with it. So it sat for several years, just kind of out there in the waves for anyone that happened to come across it. And now I realize I wrote that song for me in this season, like to be able to have some momentum to go off of. And so it's available. It's been out. It's on iTunes and all those things. It can be downloaded and listened to on YouTube. But I didn't understand the full weight and all of the investment and all of the sacrifice that it would take to truly sustain something like that. And now I'm at a place where I appreciate it more with the process of releasing Save Me.
You know, I hear that from a lot of the entertainers that we interview, and I told you before we started, we interviewed a lot of the performers in Branson, and the same things that you were saying are the same things they told me, that, well, you know, I had that gift at an early age. I didn't realize that I had any gift. It was just, it wasn't until later that, you know, I won some competition in high school, and I did this and I did that, and then I got the chance to be on the stage, and I was on there with some of my heroes, and it was just like, wow, you know, I actually can do this. And then they begin to grow. But I promise you this, as you already know, people think, well, entertainers, they just sort of, you know, take what they have, get on the stage, and it's an instant success. It is a lot of work. It is a lot of preparation work, and then you got to have some break.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, listen, Kylie Joe, I'm looking forward to seeing you on August the 30th at 10 in the morning at Emmanuel Church, which is 1300 North Vine Street in Abilene, Kansas. And I appreciate the fact that you and Nick are coming up, and kids coming with you.
They are, yes. I think we have some other family members too.
Okay. All right. We're going to see you then, and God bless you, and thank you for taking time to visit with us today.
Though the ground shakes, I will stand strong. 'Cause it's not sand that I stand on. Let the winds blow, let the rains come. People may flee, I will not run. And I will stand on His promise. And I will stand through the valley of the shadow. 'Cause there's nothing that